your truth.
So my first guest on my higher level performance interview talks is none other than Susan Lumas. I decided to invite Susan on the show or to interview because I think Susan is very inspirational. I've been working with Susan as a client now for about the last 2 to 3 months. Despite being 79 years old, Susan is not letting that stand in her way. She's also suffered from having to have a hip operation and she had a stroke last year. Yet she turns up for the gym every Tuesday and brings a smile to my face. So I've decided to get Susan on the show just to try and inspire other people, and particularly the more elderly population, and show them that there is still plenty that they can do and that exercise is still for everyone. So thank you very much for coming on to talk with me today, Susan. Lovely to have you here as always.
Thank you very much.
So first off, Susan, I just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your profession and what you used to do.
I was an archivist in the National Archives, working on documents going way back to the 19th century. And I specialised in items on census returns and in 16th and 17th century naval
Shipyards and dockyards. Yeah. I think me and Susan tend to get on quite well because Susan, like myself, enjoys seeing the world, and Susan's done lots of travelling also, haven't you? You've been all over the place.
As much as I can, all over the place. I couldn't even quantify them all, but I certainly would go and have a look at most parts of the world given half a chance. But now my travelling days are over, and when I had a stroke, I was given work to do in
the rehab.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not. But before when I was in the hospital, and I found that I was still fit enough for what I used to do about 7 years ago when I had
the hip operation.
The hip operation.
Yeah.
And I was quite active before that, and I thought, oh, I can't do much because I've got difficulty with the hip and it might go again. But I found out in hospital that I could actually do the same sort of movement as I could before. And it made me think that the elderly people who think they're getting old and they can't move quickly and they'll have to be careful, they're old now, and they don't realise how fit they could be or be trained to improve their whole body with all the movement that you do.
Definitely. Been working hard in our sessions, haven't you, Susan? I've been enjoying them. So have you been, obviously I know from talking, but you've been quite active all your life?
Well, yes, I've always been interested in dancing from a very early child, and doing the usual sort of things you do in schools. But then I took up dancing seriously, briefly, over the years, and then I then started doing orienteering.
Yeah, you like your orienteering, didn't you?
I do orienteering. I wasn't brilliant at it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And of course you do it on your own amongst a group of people. You do it on your, you do it correctly.
Like the maps, yeah.
You use maps and speed, and I wasn't that fast, but I enjoyed doing it. And you can go anywhere in the country. I've even been to Sweden to do that. And I thought I couldn't do it anymore because once I'd had a hip replacement, I couldn't run because you can't run with the weight of that leg. So I thought, well, I had to give all that up. And one doesn't have to. You can do movement in other ways, and you can carry on going as long as you like.
I think that's a fantastic message for everyone there. I think in terms of exercise, obviously everyone makes excuses these days, they don't have time. I think as Susan said, it's not something that we have to be the best at. We don't have to be great at everything, but for us to stay active, I think it's very important for us to find something that we enjoy. If we're not enjoying the exercise, or it's something that we don't sort of look forward to in a way, then obviously it's not something that we want to make part of our life. Yet if we can find a way to make exercise enjoyable, then we're more likely to make it a habit and something that we want to try and continue and persist with, as Susan just mentioned.
Well, doing it every week as I do, as soon as I finish the session and I go home, I feel fitter already. You know, instead of using my stick, I quite often
just take the stick away.
Take the stick away and go home. I might need to stick en route, but I can do that simply because of this exercise.
And how, just in terms of obviously having the stroke last year, wasn't it? How would you?
Yes.
Yeah, stroke. How would you say? How's that impacted you in terms of?
Well, it's made me realise that I could carry on moving about. I didn't have to take care that I wasn't going to be an old dear in the background, that I could still move and do things effectively. I didn't need any more apart from things to do with my feet.
Yeah, definitely. And just in terms of, I think you've kind of already touched on it, but what sort of message would you like to give out to sort of other people, both young and old, I guess?
Everybody's capable of it at some level, and try it. You'll see how much better you are and how much younger you will occur in the way you do things, because you don't have to sit down on
a seat all day, on that sofa, yeah, that's it. We've got to get out. We've got to get moving, Susan. That's it.
And you'll find it so much better and so much better for it.
Good. I like that a lot. And then last couple of questions for you. Get the creative juices flowing, but I know you like to travel, so if you could pick 3 spots, and I know there's a lot in your head, but 3 spots that you mention for people to try and visit.
I went to Burma recently. I went to where the Shah used to live. I can't think of the name.
Yeah, that's right.
And Egypt. I wanted to go back to another version, another place in Egypt, which I haven't been able to anymore. But there are plenty of places in the world that are worth looking at. South America, I haven't been to.
I can say from my own experiences that South America is definitely worth a visit if you've got the time. I think the good thing about a lot of these places as well is that once you're there, you don't actually need to have sufficient amount of money. Well, you need sufficient, but obviously you don't need loads. If you compare the cost of living and doing things over in places like South America, Asia, probably even Egypt. I can't say for Egypt, but...
And South Africa.
Yeah, exactly. Once you've paid the cost of the flights, it's actually very easy to get by sort of in hostels, or as me and the boys did in South America, we spent quite a lot of time wild camping, camping in campsites. There's lots of campsites out there. So if you really are and want to travel, then there's lots of ways to do it, and just think about rather than
just respect the countries that you're going to. You do things differently and have different ways of doing things. Don't try and make them turn into English people.
Yeah,
you need to change to the places you've been to have a look at.
Yeah, definitely. So I think respecting the cultures, I think that's a big part of the travelling, is actually learning about the culture of the other countries, and getting to know other people. Obviously, as English people as a nation, we're actually probably one of the worst in terms of learning other languages. We're not the best, are we? You're quite. So I think it's cool that's a goal of mine at the moment, trying to learn Spanish. So hopefully, eventually, I'll be able to go and speak fluently when I go back to South America one day. So it's good to travel and also try and learn a bit more about the culture and see whether you can test yourself, try and learn towards the language.
And I can't think the place in South America I went to in the Amazon.
Oh, in the Amazon,
You actually go around the Amazon and have a look at the way that place is. It's absolutely
stunning, isn't it? Yeah. And last but not least, we'll test you now. Okay, if you on one, what would you say your best experience in life so far? I know that's a challenging one.
I spent all my life from a very early age doing books. I can't read books anymore, but that's been the best thing and enabled me to do so much and go to places because of the books that I read.
That's beautiful. I think as I'm getting older, I used to never read at all when I was little. I very rarely read, but I think over the last few years I'm trying to read more and more. I think sort of every night I try and spend at least half an hour reading some form of book before I go to bed. And I think that's definitely true in terms of expanding your knowledge, and education is one of our main tools in life, so I think I definitely agree with that. The reading empowers us to do sort of the things we want and learn. Cool, so high five, like the way we like to finish our workouts. Thank you very much for Susan for coming on today. Hopefully her message is powerful and it will inspire some of those of you out there to start realize that you can do it. Okay, you can do it. You just need to get up and take the first few steps. Find something you enjoy. Okay, exercise wise, we're all different. Okay, it could be walking, it might be a sport, dancing, whatever it is. Try and get a bit more active in your life because it will definitely pay off in the long run. Thank you guys for watching.